It's actually outputting 2,500 watts right now, which is crazy, but we're gonna see how long it can output that 2,500 watts. All right, everyone, so here is where the DJI Power 1000 power station really shines. If you're looking for something to charge up your drones really quickly or to get some amazing DC output to power some of your devices, then you need to stick around and watch this video, because this might just be the one that fits all of your needs. And I do want to disclose that DJI did send me this unit for testing and review, but if you're interested in purchasing this unit after watching this video and feel like that it's going to fit all your needs, I'll leave purchase links down below in the description, as well as any discounts I could find for you to save a few dollars if there is any. So please check out those links. If you use those links, they will be affiliate links, and I will receive a small commission at no extra cost to you, which is what helps support these reviews. And I want to thank you in advance for the support. Let's get into it. Right now, I got this thing outputting 426 watts of power through DC. I have it charging these DJI Air 3 batteries up really fast at like 120 watts a piece or so. I got my lawnmower battery charging up, my iPad, my MacBook, and also an EcoFlow solar generator there charging at 95 watts. And what's amazing is that this thing is super quiet. While it's outputting over 400 watts of DC output, you cannot even hear the fans running on this thing. The fan that you hear running, actually, if you can hear it, is the EcoFlow fan, which has been a really good power station for me, but that thing is noisy. When I have it plugged in watching TV at night, it's only drawing about 80 to 100 watts, and that fan kicks on so loud it almost overpowers the TV. And you can hear how loud the fan is right now from it just charging at 95 watts through the UsbC port. Now this thing's awesome in many ways, but there are a few things that you should know about. The first is being that it doesn't have UsbC input. Now if you buy their smaller 500 watt unit, then it does have UsbC input. Would have been nice if they put it in this one. And the second only other negative thing that I found is that anything you need to do with this as far as solar charging or outputting DC power through a car port like this, you do need adapters to go into these two SDC ports for that. So you need to plug an adapter in for either solar charging through this DC car charger or the solar charge converter. You need to power into those DC ports. But what's nice about that is this unit is super lightweight, super durable, and this thing does charge up super quick. It does not have an app, but it does have a switch here on the front where you can select 600 watts of charging or 1200 watts. And honestly, I kind of prefer that because you don't have to sit there and mess around logging into an app to change your charge rate. All you got to do is flick the switch. If you're charging this thing up from a smaller gas generator or your outlet's not capable of outputting 1200 watts without blowing a breaker, you just flick that to 600 watts. And in fact, if you have extra time for this thing to charge, that would actually give you a little bit longer life out of your battery over time. And what's really awesome about this unit is I watched another video where a guy tore one of these apart, and I was really impressed with the circuit board. It's completely encapsulated in some kind of protective layer, so you don't really have to worry about moisture or the board corroding. And that's probably why they offer up to a 5-year warranty, because this thing's probably going to hold up pretty well over time. And I've already had 2 or 3 different power stations now that the circuit board had some kind of white flaky stuff on it. If you watch some of my previous videos, you'll see where I tore one apart and figured out the problem and fixed it, but it had some kind of flaky stuff on the circuit board, and it was like that when I got it. And then actually 2 other ones I had the same problem, so this one should not have that issue with that board being coated like that. So really high quality. I've always had a lot of good luck with any DJI product that I've ever owned. They also offer a bag for this for like an additional $100. Really nice bag. Comes with a nice flap in the front that will protect all your outlets whenever you have stuff plugged in. And it has vents on each side that you can flip down while the unit is running. However, keep in mind, you really can't have the charge controllers mounted to the unit when it's in the bag because it will block the side vent, and it doesn't really fit in the bag with both charge controllers mounted. However, you can squeeze it in with the top one mounted, and you can flip the top flap open and it would still be vented. But just something to keep in mind. Is a nice protective carry bag though, with a nice large pocket on the back to store those charge controllers and your accessory cables. I drained the power out of this unit completely twice to see what kind of efficiency it had, and then I charged this thing up, and it does charge super fast, so I'll show you the testing on that. But this is amazing here. If you charge this drone up, the DJI Air 3, directly from the UsbC cable and back of the drone, you're only going to get it charging at about 63 watts. And if you charge these up with these SDC ports here, it charges at about double that rate, so you could get charged up twice as quick and have twice as much flight time out of your drone batteries. Now, one thing I did notice about charging these DJI Air 3 batteries up is that if you use their charge cable, you're only going to get a maximum of 60 watts of charging through the UsbC ports. However, if you have the Flymore package and you have this battery hub here, if you get an aftermarket cable, you could charge at up to 100 watts for a battery in this hub. However, it only charges one battery at a time, but it is still faster to charge through the SDC port. You could charge your batteries at up to 120 watts, but this is a good option to charge your third battery up. You can have two charging at 120 watts a piece and one charging at 100 watts if you buy an aftermarket USB-C cable and plug it into the USB-C port. Super quick. Now these USB-A ports are capable of outputting up to 24 watts each, and these USB-C ports are capable of outputting up to 140 watts each. However, I don't have a cable that will supply over 100 watts. The most I've seen out of this one going to my MacBook was around 120 watts at one point, but I think it depends on how fast this wants to charge. It's not always going to charge at 140 watts. So I've seen over 100 watts, which is really nice, but I have not been able to get it up to 140 watts yet. I don't really have anything that charges at that speed. To get 140 watts out, you have to have something that supports PD 3.1 protocol and use a cable that meets those specifications. What's neat about this is when you're charging through these SDC ports and charging up these batteries, it actually tells you here on the display what percentage your battery's at, and they're charging super fast. The one is at 77%, the other battery's at 63%, and you can see how fast the percentage is going up on these two batteries. Super fast charging for these through that SDC port. And it'll charge this DJI Air 3 battery from 10% to 95% in 30 minutes, which is insanely fast. And again, that's where this unit's gonna shine. If you're into drones, flying a lot of drones, and if your drone is capable of charging from this unit, check out their website. It'll show you which ones are. All you need to do is buy the additional SDC charge cables to go to your batteries. This is the SDC to DJI Air 3 cables. Buy the ones that are compatible for your drone and you'll get charged up super quick. But if you want power coming in from a solar panel and power going out to these devices and to this, you have to actually remove one of these SDC charge ports to plug in your charge controller or to charge from a vehicle. So you are going to be limited to only charging one drone battery quickly if you're trying to harness the power of the sun while you're doing so. And if you have two of these like I do, you can plug one into each of these SDC charge ports and charge with 6 individual solar panels into here at once. So now this DJI Power 1000 does not have any built-in solar charge controllers. You do have to buy these MPPT modules individually, separately, if you want to charge from solar, and they plug into the SDC port. Now you could mount one directly onto the side of this unit, or you can use the included brackets to mount two onto the side of the unit. And the fan blows through this side, out this side, so it does keep this top module kind of cool. I did notice that this bottom one was getting fairly warm because there's no fan blowing on that one. One thing I noticed about mounting the top charge controller on here, it does get in the way of the handle, so keep that in mind. While it would have been nice to see some sort of built-in input, even if it was only one XD60 port, and it really would have been nice to see a 60 volt input limit, because it seems like these are converting it and outputting 54 volts anyway. So I'm not sure why these are capped at 30 volts input on the solar panels when they're outputting almost 60 volts. Maybe they can upgrade these in the future to include 60 volt input. All right, so now I want to show you something pretty interesting. So this is the DJI car power outlet to SDC. This is the adapter that you use to charge this unit from your 12 volt outlet in your vehicle. You can also use this to charge via solar, but there is a limitation. This only outputs 100 watts. This is the EcoFlow 220 watt solar panel, and that panel is outputting 18.27 volts, 98 watts, and you can see here 99 watts going in through this adapter. So now let's unplug it from this adapter, plug it into the solar panel adapter, and we'll see what kind of wattage we get then and see if we get more than 99 watts. So now plugged in with the solar adapter, we're getting 154 watts at 9.52 amps, right around 16.15 volts. And just to show you a comparison, that panel is capable of outputting 162 watts currently at 11.12 amps. If you only have this adapter, like I said, you can use it to charge up to 100 watts with solar as long as you're under that 30 volt limit. But if you want to get more input into this unit, you're going to need one of these solar panel adapter modules to SDC. All right, so now I want to show you that if you have two mismatched panels plugged into one of these, it holds the voltage of the lower panel. So if you have a higher voltage panel and a lower voltage panel when you plug it in, you're not going to get the max output out of your higher voltage panel. Now you still want to stay under 30 volts, but I have two 400 watt panels plugged in right now, and I'm getting 255 watts plugged into one of these units. This panel is outputting 16.16 volts at 103 watts. I'm gonna unplug it from this one, plug it into this other module, and we're gonna see that this is gonna output more than 16 volts now. It's gonna be up around 20 some volts. And I'm also getting more input on the unit at 275 watts now. So you're better off using similar panels with the same amperage and voltage output whenever you parallel them into these MPPT modules. All right, so now I have a ton of solar panels hooked up, two 100 watt panels there, a 200 watt panel, 120 watt panel, 200 watt panel, and a 220 watt panel for like 970 watts total. I believe it was when I added it up. The max I can get into this is 575 watts of input. And I believe I'm maxing these out as far as the amperage goes. It's hard for me to tell how much amperage is going into here because I can't hook my meter up through this side. But 575 watts, if I unplug this 120 watt panel, I only lost 13 watts of input from that 120 watt panel. So I'm only getting a little bit of wattage using 3 panels up here, and now I'm gonna plug it into the bottom one. I'm getting 562. Now I'm getting 564. So this 120 watt panel isn't really doing me any good because the limit on these are maxed out. The most input I was able to get into here with the solar panels that I have is about 570 some watts. And it does say each one of these modules max output is 400 watts. And the most I was able to get out of one module plugging 600 watts of solar into it was 372 watts of input. But from 28%, it says it'll be fully charged in about 84 minutes. And another thing that's awesome about this unit is it does have pass-through charging. You could turn these AC outlets on and use them while you're using DC and while you're inputting AC with no problems up to 1400 watts. All right, so now we have the DJI Power 1000 plugged into the cigarette lighter port of my wife's CRV. We have one going into the bottom SDC port, and we're getting 99 watts of input. So now what we're gonna do is her car has an additional port in the back. So we're gonna plug that second port in with the same adapter here into the other SDC port, and we're gonna see if it charges at around 200 watts. Or it might blow the car fuse because I'm not sure if those are on the same fuse or different fuses. I would assume different, but let's see what happens here. And it looks like it's starting to ramp up now. And there it goes. And when you do this, you want to make sure that you have the vehicle running. If your outlets are powered when your car is turned off and you're hooked up like this, it will drain your battery. Many vehicles, in fact most vehicles, will shut the power off to those outlets whenever your vehicle is powered off, so you shouldn't have a problem. But if for some reason your vehicle still powers that when the key is off, make sure your engine is running. And it looks like it's going to stop at around 163 watts there. So not quite double, but definitely getting more than 100 watts of input. So this would be nice for keeping this unit charged up while you were driving down the road. So now additionally, if you didn't want to use both of these ports, say you were powering a 12-volt refrigerator from one of them, you could either just plug one into your car power, getting 99 watts, or you can actually plug it into a solar charge controller if you didn't buy this adapter and you had the solar charge controller, and say you had a cigarette lighter to XT60 port laying around from some other solar generators that you may have purchased, or you could buy these individually on Amazon. You would be able to plug directly into the solar charge controller and then plug that into the port, and you can see the power is ramping up now, and I'm actually getting a little bit more input now. Well, no, about the same. And now I have both of the DC charge ports from my vehicle plugged into a solar charge controller, running into one SDC charge port, and I'm still getting right around 160 watts. So no matter how I do it, that's the max, right around 160, 165 watts that I'm gonna get into this unit coming from my vehicle. So I was assuming that I would get up around 200 watts. However, it looks like the max I'm gonna be able to reach is around 164 charging from dual ports in a vehicle. So now, just out of curiosity, I plugged one port into my EcoFlow and then one into the vehicle, and now I'm getting 184 watts of input into this unit. So maybe my vehicle is limiting the input slightly for some reason. I'm not sure why, but I am able to get almost 100 watts out of each port now into this unit charging this way. So there's definitely a lot of flexibility there as far as the way you could charge it up, the way you can export power through either these car chargers, or you can get SDC to XT60. And one of these is a regular SDC port and one is an SDC light port. And these can output from 9 to 27 volts at up to 10 amps. Right now, they're similar in power output and input. There really isn't a difference, but in the future, I believe they're gonna make different adapters to be able to use these ports a little differently. So maybe that's when you'll see the difference between the SDC and the SDC light port. And also it would be nice if they came out with a SDC to either Anderson or XT60 power similar to this cable to output more than 10 amps. That way those that are in an RV or a camper or something similar can output massive power to their 12-volt system if needed. So who knows what they're going to come up with in the future, but really awesome that they have that availability there to update and make different items for these ports. And another cool feature is these are pretty big looking ports that are way bigger than an XT60. So who knows, maybe in the future they'll come out with an expansion battery that you'll be able to plug into these as well. That would be an awesome feature to have too. So put it down in the comments. Let me know what you would like to see them come up with for these ports. But let's get into the rest of the testing. Let's see what kind of power output this thing can output, because it's supposed to output 2200 watts continuously. Should be able to drain the battery completely running 2200 watts with a max output of 2600 watts and a total peak output of 4400 watts. So this little unit here puts out a massive amount of power for being as small as it is and as lightweight as it is at 29 pounds. Now this has a 1024 watt hour battery, and that's almost unheard of to have that much power output from a battery of this size. All right, so now we're gonna see what kind of output we can get out of this unit and for how long. I have a induction cooktop here, heating up some water and gonna be charging the Blue Eddy. Currently it's outputting 1991 watts. And we're gonna try to turn up this induction cooker, but it might be hard to keep it at 2200 watts. Let's see what happens here. See what this gets us to. 2300 watts. So this is over the limit of the output. We're gonna see how long this runs. And the unit is beeping. So I hear this beeping, so it's probably not gonna maintain that for very long. I think it'll run up to 2400 watts for, I forget exactly how long it is. I'll put it up on the screen, but I'm gonna go ahead and lower the wattage and see if that goes away. Okay, so the beeping did go away. So if you go over 2200 watts, it will start beeping. It will continue to power out, but it will give you that warning. At least it doesn't shut down right away. But you'll see how fast this percentage drops pulling this much power. If you're pulling 2000 watt hours, you'll get about a half hour of runtime, maybe a little bit less than that out of this unit if you're pulling this much power. So keep that in mind. It actually says there's 22 minutes left because it has a 1024 watt hour battery. Let's crank this up to sear, see if that changes. Oh yeah, there we go. 2200 watts. Oh, perfect. Put it on sear. We're right at the 2200 watt limit, just over, no beeping. So let's see how long this will run it for. And it's saying it'll last about 17 minutes, having 70%. So we'll see if we can get this water to boil within those 17 minutes. And what's awesome, according to my Blue Eddy app, it's getting 119 volts of input, which means at max power, this thing is still producing around 120 volts, which is awesome. A lot of power stations, when they're producing this much output, will drop the voltage to sometimes around 105 volts, which normally I don't like, but this one's holding steady at right around 120 volts, which is similar to household current. And pure sine wave coming out of there at almost max power, which is awesome, really good to see. All right, so it's been on for 8.5 minutes and the water's already boiling, which is awesome. Still outputting just under 2200 watts, no problems at all. So this thing outputs massive amount of power very quietly, very easily. What you're actually hearing is the fan coming from this induction cooktop. As soon as I shut this off and unplug it, get it out of the way so you don't hear that fan, you're gonna hear that this fan is very, very quiet. All right, so we're just about at 11 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down, but it's down to 40%. It shows we have 9 more minutes to go. Water's boiling really well. So let's go ahead and shut that down. The fan shut off on there. You can actually start to hear the fan ramping down just a hair. Can barely hear it. Very, very quiet unit. If you're looking for something to power something while you're sleeping at night, this might just be the unit for you. Okay, so now I did an AC inverter test. I left the AC outlets on for 18 hours and it used 33% of the 1024 watt hour battery. When I did the calculations, that was 1.8% an hour, or about 19 watts per hour. So honestly, that's not that bad at all. It's actually on the lower end from some of my other power stations. For example, like the Anchor, when it's on, it has 2 inverters in it and it uses like 76 watts per hour just being on. Some of my other units use up into 20 some watts per hour. Typically, the larger the inverter that you get, the more power that it uses just from the inverter being on. So that is something you're gonna wanna keep in mind. And I did 2 different tests with this. I drained this unit completely from 100% to 0%, running a 55-inch flat screen TV, which was using about 76 watts. And it actually shut off around 3% and it used 660 watt hours after about 9 hours. So it ran that 55-inch TV for 9 hours, and that was about a 65% efficiency. Not the greatest, but again, that was a very small load on this unit for the size of the inverter. I did a second test drawing 500 watts while I was charging another power station with it. And after about an hour and 44 minutes, the unit was completely dead at 0%, and it used 850 watt hours, or about 83% efficiency. So you'll see there that you're gonna have different efficiency depending on what size load you run, but not too bad in my opinion for only having a 19 watt draw from the AC inverter being on without running a load. But just keep in mind, with that 1024 watt hour battery, the higher the load, the quicker your battery will drain. So if you have a really small power load, say under 100 watts, sometimes you're better off using the DC output. If you can, if you're powering like a 12 volt refrigerator or charging up phones or iPads, you're gonna wanna use these ports instead of using the DC, and that's with any solar generator or any power station in general. Now, something to keep in mind whenever you turn these AC outlets on, if you see this light kind of pulsing, if it doesn't sense any output on this AC after a half hour, it will shut these outlets off. But when you turn this AC outlet on, if you hold the button in like this and you see a steady light, then it will remain on and will stay on indefinitely until your battery drains down completely. And as far as the DC efficiency goes, I couldn't keep these outlets on longer than an hour, because after an hour, if they don't sense at least, I believe it's like 1 watt within that hour, they shut down. So it was very hard for me to keep these outlets on. Now, with that being said, I had a 12 volt cooler plugged into this thing, let it run all night into the next day, had it set at 32 degrees, which is typically what I set most of my coolers at, because if you set them to 32, they typically run right around 38 to 40. And it ran flawlessly all night, never shut off. So the only issue you may have with that is if it's really cold at night and the cooler doesn't kick on within an hour and doesn't draw any wattage, this may shut down. But I did mention it to them and asked them if there was a way to keep them on, and they said that they might do something with a firmware upgrade in the future where you can enable these to stay on indefinitely, which is what I would prefer. Now, what's awesome about the SDC ports is you can run 2 12 volt outputs from these SDC ports. Right now I'm powering a 12 volt backpack cooler and also a 12 volt new air cooler. Currently it's using 81 watts. That one reached temperature down to 32. Let's go ahead and turn it down here so it kicks back on. But that's an amazing backpack cooler that just came out. If you want to see the full review on it, make sure you go check it out. But if you need something bigger, obviously you're going to want something like this. This also takes an internal battery, so check out this review as well. But that's awesome that you can power both of these units from this power station at the same time, because a lot of units only have one 12 volt output. Some have a 5521 or a 5525 port, as well as the car cigarette lighter port like this, but some only have one cigarette lighter port. That's awesome that this one has 2, so you can get double power out of this unit powering 2 different 12 volt coolers like this. So that cooler just kicked on and it's ramping up here. Now it's using 115 to 120 watts to power both of these coolers. And I have them both on max mode, but like I said, awesome that you can power 2 12 volt devices up to 10 amps with the XDC to car charger outlet. All right, so now that we've seen how much power this thing can output, let's see how fast it recharges from 0%. Starting now. So that's crazy right off the bat. Even at 0%, it's charging at over 900 watts. A lot of times these units will charge very slow until it hits a certain point and then ramp up speed. but I'll be back shortly as soon as it hits max input. And it's saying 76 minutes to recharge, so we'll see how accurate that is. And now they claim that this will charge from 0% to 80% in 50 minutes, and it has been 48 minutes and 43 seconds, and it's at 80%. So it's just a little bit faster than they actually claim. That's amazing. And it's been staying right around 1230 watts max. So I just noticed right after it hit right around 82%, the charge rate dropped, and it's now charging at 984 watts. So still fast. We're gonna go ahead and see how much longer it takes to hit 100%, but so far it's been almost 51 minutes. And this whole time, this unit here has been super, super quiet. You can't even hear the fans running. What you hear is actually this power station over here, because I have this charging off the anchor here, and this is the fans that you hear coming from this one. This one is super quiet. You don't hear any fan noise or anything. So it's been 62 minutes and we're at 99%. It should only be a few more minutes. It's showing 12 minutes on the display. All right, just under an hour and 5 minutes, so 65 minutes, 100% fully charged from 0 to 100. So 5 minutes faster than their stated 70 minutes. So awesome. So you can charge this thing up in an hour, go out, use it to power your drones, and fly them all day. All right, so now I got this unit charged back up, but it's down to 81% now because I'm starting to cook dinner on it. Got this getting ready to boil here. Now, if any of you are interested in picking this up, this is an induction cooktop. I'll leave it down below. What's nice about this one is it has different settings. You can adjust it from 600, 900, or 1500 watts. Right now I've had it set on 1500 watts in sear. Now that's the max it's gonna use. It's using 1380 watts right now. But what's cool is if you don't have a big enough power station for this, you can set it down to 600 watts and it'll only use about 600 watts from your power station. So if that's the biggest power station you got, you could still use this induction cooktop. So that's pretty cool that you have different modes there. But we're gonna turn this coffee pot on and then this heater if we need a little bit more power, and we're gonna see if we can max this thing out over 2200 watts and see how long it lasts before it shuts down. And if you are interested in picking up this Black & Decker, this is probably my favorite coffee maker when I'm camping. It's small, portable, lightweight. It takes regular grounds, not K-cups, so you could throw some regular grounds in here. And this thing only uses 600 watts. So this will work with a lot of smaller power stations as well. And it fills this 20-ounce cup up perfectly with one brew. So pretty awesome there. Like I said, if you guys are interested, I'll put the links down below. But let's get this power cranked up and see how long it can last before it shuts off. All right, so I got the coffee pot running hot water through it. I'm not actually brewing coffee because I don't really want coffee right now. Got the induction cooktop going. You can see some steam rolling off there. It's getting ready to start boiling. Have it set on max at 1500 watts and sear. Right now the power station's outputting 2023 watts and pure sine wave coming out of there at almost max power, which is awesome. Really good to see. And it's outputting 120 volts. But let's turn on this heater. It should be about 400 watts. See if this thing bumps up to about 2400 watts. It'll probably start beeping. Let's start a timer and see how long it can maintain that power. It's actually outputting 2500 watts right now, which is crazy. You can hear it start to beep, but we're gonna see how long it can output that 2500 watts. And my wife's getting ready to start throwing some dinner on the griddle. So we're kind of doing two things at once here, cooking dinner and testing power stations. But so far so good. It's insane that it's still outputting 2384 watts at 120 volts. That's odd, I've never seen that before. Oh, I think one of my probes came out. Well, it just shut down. So the problem with that was my probe came out, but it just shut down. But it did power that load for almost a minute. So that's crazy that it output up to 2400 watts for 1 minute before it shut down. So awesome power out of this unit. Shut it off, turn it back on. The overload is gone. Now let's see if we can turn it back on. Perfect, turned back on and the pure sine wave is back. All right, everyone, there you have it. So other than the fact that you need a dongle for solar charging and DC output, this unit is pretty amazing, being able to charge really fast, being really quiet, being able to charge those drone batteries super quick, 140 watt output on each USB-C port, and the power output of this unit is pretty amazing. But let me know down in the comments what you thought, and if you're interested in picking one of these up, like I said in the beginning of the video, there will be links down in the description. If you use those links, I will receive a small commission at no extra cost to you. And please consider sticking around if you enjoyed this content, and I will see all of you on the next one. Thanks for watching, everyone.